Hello and welcome to another episode of the Saints FC podcast. My name is John Bailey, and this week I've got an absolute treat for you. Rather than talking about Saints' rather disappointing loss to Liverpool at the weekend with Tom, instead I've got a fantastic interview with Mr. Paul Jones, a Saints goalkeeping legend, hero. One of the longest running keepers for Saints, certainly in recent years. Made over 200 appearances for the Saints. Kept over 50 clean sheets. Won Player of the Year back in 97, 98. And even was the first goalkeeper to be substituted on in an FA Cup final. So I managed to speak to Paul. We have a good old chat. And the great news is we get to come around to a lot of your listener questions as well. So if you sent me a question, whether it was on email, Twitter, Reddit, on the Saints forum, wherever you like to interact with the Saints FC podcast, have a little listen in. Your question's probably in there. If it isn't, thank you very much anyway. And I hope that you enjoy the interview. Anyway, let's head over to about a month ago when I phoned up Paul Jones. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Saints FC podcast. I am absolutely delighted to have on the line Mr. Paul Jones, Saints goalkeeping legend. He made over 200 appearances for Southampton, keeping over 50 clean sheets. He won Player of the Year during the 97 to 98 season, and he became the first ever goalkeeper to be subbed on in an FA Cup final back in 2003. He was Welsh international keeper for 9 years, and he even beat Ryan Giggs to Welsh Player of the Year, who I think was pretty much always had his name on the trophy every season. Paul Jones was the first choice keeper for the Saints from 1997 to 2004. Basically 5 straight seasons playing under Dave Jones, Glen Hoddle, Stuart Gray, Gordon Strachan, and a couple of slightly less successful managers as well. Dave, Paul, it's absolutely brilliant to have you on the show. Thank you very much for joining us. How are you feeling today?
Yeah, it's a pleasure, John. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you.
So, Paul, I'm just going to get kind of stuck into the questions. I wonder if we can start right at the beginning of your Southampton career. What were your memories of joining Southampton or finding out about the interest that Southampton had in you before you signed for us?
Yeah, well, obviously, 96, 97, I was at Stockport, which we don't want to mention too much, obviously coming down to the Dell and beating the Saints in the quarterfinal of the Cup. But I think I did Dave Jones for starters to the chairman and so on in Southampton and the way we played and so on. And Dave got offered the job in the summer after Graham Souness leaving, and then Dave Jones put me down with him down to the Saints, it was a bit of a shock, to be honest, as in the fact that to get a chance to enter Premier League so quickly after dropping down from the Championship down to League One myself at the time, and but it was magnificent. I really enjoyed it, and as I say, Dave sort of took us down in 97. Yeah.
Yeah. So Dave obviously had great faith in you and brought you along. What was it like going into the Saints dressing room, kind of being the new managers, new signing? Did you feel like a little bit of an outsider at first, or did you settle in quite quickly?
Yeah, I mean, it is strange when you go into a new changing room. Obviously, coming from a lot lower league as well, you always got sort of, you have in the back of your mind that you've got to try and impress in training and so on, just to sort of say you're good enough to be in the dressing room. But I mean, the lads are brilliant. It's such a good group of lads together. They're so welcoming. It made it very easy, to be honest, and settling very quickly, to be fair.
Yeah. I've got a question from a listener here about your early time at Southampton. He's a chap that goes by the name of Muckers. So when people send in their questions online, you only get the kind of fake name and not the real name. But he remembers when you first arrived at the Saints that there's a little bit of a rough time from a small section of fans. I don't know if you particularly remember this or how you kind of got over this negativity with the fans when you first arrived.
I don't remember really, to be honest, because I just wanted to go out there and try and impress, as I say, and settle in with the lads. And if I remember rightly, I think my first game at the Dell, the first game was Bolton at home, and as much as we lost 1-0, quite a decent game, I think, at the time. I think probably because obviously Dave Best was there, Mike Taylor, two very good goalkeepers, so maybe the fans, who's this guy coming from lower league as such, so maybe that I just didn't see a great deal before that, maybe a couple of sort of pre-season friendlies. So, fans have the options and opinions, and sometimes some just pick up something straight away. Do you know what I mean? So, I know obviously myself, it takes time to settle in, as we say, at the club. But I was just loving being in the Premier League and just wanted to go out there. And I think obviously at the end of the season I must have done something right to Player of the Year, as you mentioned earlier. So it obviously turned around somehow.
I doubt you would have had any kind of questions about joining Southampton, obviously, because it was a big step up from Stockport at the time. Did you ever worry that going into the Premier League would be too big a step, or were you totally confident in your ability that you could do it?
Well, I think obviously the run we'd had with Stockport, as I mentioned, about the Saints, and we played Middlesbrough, West Ham, Blackburn, who were all in the Premier League at the time, and I performed very well against them for Stockport. So I think I was sort of, you have that feeling of, you can sort of compete at that level, and I've done very well. I know there are only 3 or 4 games, but I was sort of around the area of obviously then getting to the Welsh side as well, or Welsh squad. So you're playing with top players at that time as well. So you sort of have an idea, and you just want to go out there and try and perform. And obviously Dave Jones had a massive confidence in me after signing me sort of twice within a year or so. So it was just down to me then just to go out and perform and do the right things, which obviously I did at the time. So
yeah, and Lambert and Ernie, which is another, I think, kind of fake name play on Bert and Ernie from Sesame Street. He wonders kind of which the best coaches or best managers that you've worked under. And he wonders if, particularly on that, if there's any coaches that brought in anything that could be described as revolutionary and perhaps change the way you approach football.
I think there's, again, sort of different times. Obviously, as they brought me in, did very well. We got on very well as people as well. Managing-wise, Dave was very good with the players. Obviously, the situation with Dave with being released, or putting card in leave as it was called at the time, is another matter. But then Glen Hoddle came in. To be fair to Glen, was fantastic on the training ground. His technique, even then himself, showing the midfield players, and Matty Oakley certainly improved when Glen came in. But his ability to change games and so on, man management, probably not the strongest point. And then Strachan came in, he was a fiery Scotsman that, wanted to win every game and get the ball in the box and so on. So you always have different times of different managers, slightly different, obviously want the same thing, but in slightly different ways. But I think the biggest thing for me at the time, certainly when Dave brought me down, he brought in a goalkeeping coach called David Coles, who was very good. And I've never really had a goalkeeping coach full time, as bits and bobs when I was at Stockport and Wolves and so on. But Dave Coles came in full time, and he was brilliant to work with. He's so enthusiastic as well. It just gives you that confidence day in, day out, working with a goalkeeper. I might be in an hour before. We sort of used to go out a little bit earlier before the team. So I have 45 minutes, an hour, coaching one-to-one with the goalkeeping coach. And that also breeds confidence in you as well, And I think that's a great part. I mean, now it's every club's got a goalkeeping coach, but you're talking of 20 years ago, it was virtually unheard of for a professional, or to have a professional full-time goalkeeping coach.
And I kind of wonder that, because obviously I think the experience as a footballer as being a goalkeeper is quite different from an outfield player, because I suppose in many ways you're a little bit isolated from the team. I mean, I wonder how does it work as a goalkeeper coming in? Do you get the same camaraderie with the rest of the players who are obviously training together and playing together all the time, or do you almost have your kind of, I've heard it being called like the goalkeepers union type, where the 2 or 3 goalkeepers that you have in the squad, you're all kind of best mates but also fierce rivals because you spend all of your time together?
Yeah, I mean that is part of it. I wouldn't say we'd only had, like as I just said earlier, an hour or so by ourselves early on, and you train with the team, and obviously in your dressing room with all the team. So you're not really, you're not stuck like a sore thumb out by yourself. You have that camaraderie with the club, with the squad and the team and the change room anyway. But yes, just going back to the goalkeepers union, as such we used to call it. There used to be probably 2 or 3 goalkeepers, and you used to work hard. Realise what you had to do to be sort of the top level as you could. And, we were only fighting for one place, but I think we all appreciate, and you ask most goalkeepers now, you understand what such a hard work job it is. So it's no good the other 2 lads, if you like, I'm going to swear now, tossing it off as such that you can't perform day in, day out yourself. So there is that camaraderie that realise that, hang on a minute, we're working here to try and get the best out of each other. Yeah.
So it's quite interesting. I mean, you mentioned that Dave Jones is a very good man manager, and then obviously he had to go on his gardening leave to defend himself, and then Glen Hoddle came in. What did you guys think of Glen Hoddle coming in? Because at the time, he'd very much fallen out of grace after being the England manager, but not really for his abilities as a footballing coach, more that kind of man management side and perhaps some of his more bizarre methods. How did the team, what did you feel like when you knew Hoddle was interested in becoming Saints manager?
Yeah, well, it sort of really come out of the blue. Obviously, went up to Dave, and then pretty quickly it sort of changed over, really. And as I say, I remember Glenn was a fantastic player. I mean, I don't think anybody can disagree with that. Obviously the England situation and so on is a bit bizarre. So, but personally, and most of the lads thought, okay, he's come out. We know he's a good player. We know he's a good coach. He's come out of that situation. You give him a chance. And to be fair, as I say, he got us playing some great stuff at the time. And, I'm very disappointed when he left. I think we were about 8th, and pretty close to being in the sort of points-wise in the top, Europe top 4 or 5 for the European position when he left. So, he came across. I mean, we improved, definitely. I mean, the team improved technically, as I mentioned earlier. Matty Oakley absolutely leaps and bounds, the midfield players especially. But unfortunately, as I say, he disappeared to Spurs, which you half understand, I suppose, being a legend at Spurs.
Yeah, and what was it that changed it? Was it his technical ability and his way to work with the midfield and the improvement he made in that part of the team that meant Saints were able to kind of step up, I suppose, after Dave left?
Yeah, I think it just had that little bit extra in midfield, certainly for us. The idea of the way the boys worked. And to be fair, a couple of times tactically wise, he changed things when we won games from those little changes, which, as I said, Dave did very well. I think we finished 12th the first season, if I remember rightly, with Dave, and we were doing okay. Unfortunately, when he left as such. So I think Glenn just took it on another level. Dave didn't have the chance to do that, unfortunately. Yeah. We'd never know, but I think Glenn obviously just took it on another level. Worked with what we got. I can't remember if he put 1 or 2 players in as well, and then we just improved from there. We were on a hell of a run, as I say, when he left. I think actually I was on the run of 7 clean sheets, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
Until we played Ipswich on the Monday night, but which my mate is a big Ipswich fan, always reminds me.
Yeah. Well, perhaps now's a good time to talk about that run of 7 clean sheets, because that was a bit of a long-standing record for Saints until Fraser Forster nicked it the other day. What do you remember of that run?
I mean, early on, you don't really think much about it. You obviously want to keep a clean sheet every game. That's the whole point of, at the end of the day, starting in home now. That's the whole idea of the back four myself, always looking to keep a clean sheet. But as you get 1, 2, 3, it's a great feeling to, whether you're winning games or not, you're picking something up. We were very strong at the back at that time with, obviously, Klaus, Dean Richards at centre halves. I remember Bridgie and Dodsley mainly right back, left back. So, as a five as such, we were very strong, and obviously the boys in front were doing the jobs as well. As time went on, then it was almost like, well, we're not going to see the goal anyway. You got that feeling, which after 4 or 5 games, it's almost like a bizarre feeling, because I'd had that much before where we had a long run of clean sheets. You'd have 1 or 2, and then obviously let a goal in or so on, but. It's almost after 5 games you're like, well, I ain't that goal in. Next round, no, I'm not. And it's sort of gives you that confidence of that. And I'm so unfortunate at the time when we did lose 2 shoots. I think Glen left at the weekend before, or whichever, something like that. And Stuart took over, but whether that was a bit of a come down from ourselves of being disappointed that Glen left, I don't know really.
Yeah, and how did you guys get on with Stuart Gray? Because from the fans' perspective, it felt a little bit like Stuart Gray's time at Saints was a bit of a damp squib, and it was a bit of a shame, because it felt like a really big time for the club. There was a real change from going to the Dell to St Mary's, with you guys playing so well, looking like we might start qualifying for Europe, and it felt like Saints were kind of almost stepping up to become that slightly bigger club, and then under Stuart Gray things just kind of went backwards a little bit.
Yeah, it's difficult. Stuart's a great coach. Talking about coaches earlier, Stuart for the lads were brilliant. He works so well. Coaches are a funny breed, because obviously you've got the manager, obviously is the manager, and you have a little bit of rapport with him, but they have to have a point where it's a cut-off with a coach. Can be one of your mates almost, do you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, he's got to trying to keep 24, 25 players happy. And then he's obviously stepped up to be manager. It's a little bit, he's almost got to break away a little bit. And it all must be very different. It's very rarely you get a coach at a club and then takes over and continues on and being a top manager. Because I think you always have that, as I said, the players have got that rapport with the coach. But now it's got to be slightly different, because, as I say, he's got to make decisions that's going to, at the end of the day, when you pick 11 players, you're going to have that confrontation, if you like. Whereas a coach, he doesn't, he puts his arm around someone or gives them a boot up the arse, if you like. Come on, there's no real comeback on that. When you're a manager, obviously there's always that pressure of it. He's got to pick teams and so on. So I think that's probably, he did very well. He went to Sheffield Wednesday and done bits there, but I think it's always difficult when you've been sort of a number 2 to actually step into a top manager's job, I think. Yeah,
it's a good point. I can't really think off the top of my head of too many managers that have managed to make that step up particularly successfully. So obviously Gordon Strachan comes in after Stuart Gray. I imagine he was one for the kick up the arse type.
Definitely. He was a fiery Scotsman, or he is a fiery Scotsman still. Strachan's brilliant, to be fair. I got on well. He's one of those, you could have an argument with him, but next minute it's fine, you know what I mean? He wanted to win every game. You could see that as a player. He played himself to his 40, I think, if I remember rightly. And he came across something, to be fair, we certainly worked our butts off, to be fair with him. We used to run every Monday morning, which was a killer. The lads used to come into training down there. Now, when he walked in on a Monday morning, win, lose, or on Saturday, didn't matter. And you'd have a post on the corner, 6-yard box, or two one end and 2 the other. And you knew you were doing like, I can't remember what you called it, but like laps on stuff. 15 where you had to do it in a certain time, and if you didn't, you'd have to do it again. And it was just like, oh my God. But, we were so fit, to be fair. We won, certainly that first year or two, we won a lot of games late on. And the boys are very fit, and it's different managers again. Are different. Glenn was more of trying to doing a small five-a-side to get you fit that way, but football fit, as I called it.
Yeah.
And as much as obviously Gordon did stuff like that, but a lot of it was also running. I mean, we did a lot of running. As soon as you finished training, we'd do sort of certain running drills again, and boys were hanging on till after training. But fitness-wise, it was amazing. Really, the lads were really fit. To be fair, and I say it sort of proved up in one games later on. Really.
Yeah, I've spoken to quite a few ex-players now doing this podcast. And there does seem to be almost every manager almost has his own kind of like style, whether it's, the fitness or whether it's someone who focuses on the tactics or someone who's a man manager. Wouldn't it be great if we could kind of get a manager who has all of those things in buckets, but perhaps it's just impossible to have all of that, in one person. And I think perhaps this is why a team kicks on quite well when you bring in someone who is slightly different, because the previous manager sorted out the tactics, and
that's right. I think it's. I mean, even now, I think it must be very difficult to to management now, because no disrespect to foreign boys, but you have a lot of foreign lads now coming in, which is different cultures, mixing with the British and so on. So you've got to try and balance the two, and it must be very difficult. Obviously, we had Klaus and Michael Svensson and Anders and so on, those boys, but they were Scandinavian boys that were pretty much very similar. I think now with a lot of the boys that have come in from a number of different countries, the Brazilians and so on, it's a different culture of that way, and it's very difficult to try and get everybody blending together. The manager can do it, fair play to them, but as I say, it's very difficult. The likes like Mark Hughes now at Stoke, they finished 9th, the last 3 years, and all of a sudden he's brought in several top players and it's not performed, and he gets a sack. So it's amazing how difficult it is, and you see, week in, week out, virtually, there seems to be a manager sacked somewhere.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, you played football at a time when there was a lot of change, certainly in the Premier League. I mean, from the 90s, we have players that talk about, having pints with the fans, and, everyone would go out after games and stuff like that. And, we're moving into the 2000s, and we've got sports science and sports psychology. You had managers like Arsene Wenger coming in who kind of really revolutionised the way training and players looked after themselves. I mean, what was it like? I mean, did you prefer the kind of like 90s at the start of your career when you could have a pint and perhaps the diets weren't monitored? And what was it like going through that transition period and having all those new players and new methods come in?
Yeah, I mean, I joined Wolves. I mean, I didn't turn pro until I was 24, so I did it 2 months before that. And then obviously I went to Wolves, and I mean, Wolves lads had a culture in the 90s. It was literally, they would trade in the morning, go out for a beer in the afternoon, which I never got involved with because I never drank, to be fair, at that time at all. So I had a very young family then, so I'd literally do my training and go home. But a lot of those boys then, and as you say, as the Premier League got bigger and better, and social media started to come on board as well. I think, you could realise you couldn't play it week in, week out at a fantastic sort of speed and level it was getting to. And B, obviously the science started to come into, as you said, to try and get you making, putting the right fuel in, which, I mean, remember we used to finish the games and you had fish and chips or chicken and chips, a couple of beers on the coach, and that started to go out the window. You're having pasta, water and so on. So I think for my personal career, it helped because obviously I didn't finish playing until I was 40, which I think if you sort of kept eating fish and chips and so on, you probably couldn't go on that long. But I certainly think that's certainly one side has improved it. The Arsene Wengers and so on that came in originally in the 2000s, around that time, that sort of brought that in with the French boys and so on there, and you've got to be sort of talking about it really. I think that's certainly something that's improved. And so the speed of the game now, well, was a lot quicker. I'm not so sure last year or two. It seems to be going backwards and sideways for me, but that's another story.
Yeah, I think almost the next thing is going to be managers who are experts in motivating teenage millionaires, isn't it?
Well, that's I mean, again, that is another part of management. They're getting paid so much money now, and don't get me wrong, we got paid well, and that's, each if you talk of each sort of different player, 70s, 80s, 90s, and so on, over that era, they were paid very well to your Joe Blobs, if you like, of guys that work in factories and so on. So whatever decade, we have been paid very well. But I mean, now it just seems, I mean, guys on £200,000-300,000 is just ridiculous. And is the football any better? I don't think you could say much better, I would say. But as a player, you're not going to say, no, I don't want that much. I'm going to take X, Y, Z. So it's at the time the times of obviously Sky have made it massive globally now with the Champions League and so on. So, and again, from a manager's point of view, that's very hard to deal with. You have got to try and keep these players happy. I think the players have got more power now with obviously agents and so on. If they're not picked, they'll moan up and want to try and leave the club. So sort of know A, they're going to get paid the money, and B, they can pick money up elsewhere. I mean, again, when we were playing, we used to have a nice salary, but we also got money to play, which is, whether it be, say, 2,000, 10,000, whatever it was in your contract, it gave you an edge to wanting to play. As much as I love playing football, I knew if I played, the extra couple of games in the month, that helps your salary to help your family, Where now, I think that's pretty much short of saying that let's just get it up front, whether it's 60, 80, 100,000. And often not even in the squad, It is a bizarre way of doing it. There's no encouragement for them to play, as in, I think it is more of a celebrity thing now than a love of football. And when you look at some of the games where they do, I watched a West Ham game yesterday in Shrewsbury, and it was like, bloody hell. These are especially Premiership players that didn't look like they wanted to be there at all,
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly seen it. No, it's interesting to hear, and I think it kind of resonates with Saints fans, certainly this season. Virgil van Dijk having had his head turned by Liverpool in the summer, was a shadow of his former self for the first half of the season for Saints, and it is so frustrating to see, the team is struggling to get the results, and knowing what that man is capable of if he's putting in the effort, and just seeing him, half-hearted efforts, it's very upsetting as a fan. And as a fan, you're investing your hard-earned money to go to the games. You can be, especially if you're taking family members, you're spending well over £100 a game.
Yeah, absolutely. That's without buying a drink and whatever, a bit of food or so on. Yeah, it is extortion now, and I do feel for fans at the end of the day. It's just, to turn up 20, 30,000, 40,000, whatever, the club, whichever club you are at, it's phenomenal that, they're virtually sold out every week. So, but people literally do save their money to do that. And as you say, on the pitch, they should be giving 100% all the time. But I'm just going briefly again yesterday, the West Ham, and you just look at them and think, my God, I don't know if you saw the game. Wow, it was just like, they did not want to be there, some of the players. It was just like, it was shocking, really.
It's upsetting to see as well. I mean, especially as a fan, I absolutely love the FA Cup as well, and it really upsets me when you see the players that don't care about it. Anyway, right. I think we should stop having a moan, and we should move on to some of your career highlights. So obviously you played at Saints, as first choice keeper for 5 straight seasons. There'll be plenty of highlights from that. I wonder if you can pick out some particular matches or times at the club that really stand out for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned the first game, obviously playing at the Dell, and obviously as much as we lost the game, Bolton 1-0, but my first Premiership game was amazing to sort of, get in there and start doing the job. And then my first time, obviously, probably most people know, I'm a Liverpool fan as a boy, so to go to Anfield and beat them 3-2 was a fantastic result. A couple of saves myself, but we went there to win at Anfield was just awesome. That first season again, and just general. I mean, I can't remember many more games that season, but again, that run of 7 clean sheets, it was just phenomenal, really, club of Southampton size, had been in the Premier League at that time, with Dell and so on, to go 7 games unbeaten, but also keeping clean sheets was tremendous. I'm just trying to think, but obviously the semi-final of the FA Cup, that was pretty amazing. Villa Park, to play in that, and then obviously to beat Watford 2-1 again, a couple of half decent saves.
That goes down as one of my favourite days ever, really, that FA Cup semi-final.
It was just, obviously, you heard of the years, and obviously 76 to get to the final, and that's what you want to do. So there's nothing worse, I'm sure. I've done it once, losing the semi-final with Stockport. There's nothing worse than, losing the semi-final. So to actually, to go there, and obviously to get to the cup final is absolutely amazing. Probably the Man United game as well, 3-3 at Old Trafford. That was a bit bizarre game, really. I remember I made a cracking double save just before the first goal, and then he obviously went on, and then Matt hit his daisy cutter, which went through his leg. I'm sure there's many other games, penalty saves and things like that at certain times, which I remember a couple at Dell where, which was, I remember one season, I said 4 out of 5, and keeping right. So there's things like that, but it was just, I used to love it, honestly. It was just, the Arsenal game, obviously the last one at the Dell, that was pretty special, with Matt scoring. The winner sort of set him up from a long goal kick, free kick outside of the area, and then obviously we know what Matt did. So, which you couldn't write that, could you? But Matt scored the last goal at the Dell. So and then obviously got to St Mary's, which was a fantastic stadium, is a fantastic stadium, and getting 30,000 odd in there behind you week in, week out was pretty stunning as well. So very happy times. Obviously the ending bit wasn't quite as happy, but obviously that's the way football is at the end of the day. So
I think for almost every football player that is the way their career goes, isn't it? At the end, it tends to tail off. It
just comes to a point. Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's a point where things change, as we said earlier. That football moves on and things change. Managers make different decisions and so on. I mean, the biggest thing we might as well talk about it now. The biggest thing that I was disappointed about there was Strachan. I did tell him a few times that he always said, I've got 2 first-team keepers now, and whoever's got shirts, we'll stay in there, which fine. Anti, I started and Anti got in and played very, very well, don't get me wrong. And then the second season, I think Anti got injured before the Christmas period, and I played 4 games. I think 2 of them I kept 2 or 3 clean sheets, and we were unbeaten, definitely. I remember the Newcastle game at home and so on. And then Anti was fit, and he just dropped me, and that was it. I mean, that was it. I said, so time for me to move on. You told me like literally months ago that whoever's got the shirt will stay in, but so that was sort of the end for me, really. That sort of November, December time, and obviously the following of the January after that, I left. So that was a big turning point for me. Not to say he didn't keep his word, but he didn't keep his word, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that was a disappointing thing for me.
Yeah, I think it must always be, quite tricky in that sort of situation as well when it is going like that. Anti was a fantastic keeper, as you were as well. And what does it feel like when someone new comes in and you start training with Anti and you realise, well, hang on a second, this guy's pretty good as well, but what am I going to do here?
I'd had it, whether it be Wales or not so much as I remember respect to Neil Moss, but Neil was a good second keeper, really, and Neil never really got to. He played a few games, but I think Anti was the first real competitor I had as such. So, it was great for me, because at the end of the day, that's what you want. And as we said, you work together. It was just one of those situations when he came in, certainly the first season, he seemed to stop everything. More of a shot stopper than coming for crosses. I used to like coming for crosses, but, again, keepers are slightly different, but He had a phenomenal first season. As I said, the situation, what happened, getting in and playing well myself, and then not being that, when he swapped it back, it sort of told me that it was time to move on. And obviously, I was getting to mid to late 30s, and I wanted to be playing. I didn't want to be sat on the bench. That if I had a chance of playing week in, week out.
Yeah, but I suppose in a way, I mean, I wonder, was it worth hanging around to be involved? Because that season where we got to the FA Cup final, despite the fact that at this point you were no longer the number one keeper all the time, you got to play in that fantastic FA Cup semi-final, and then coming on in the cup final and the first keeper to ever do that.
Yeah, I mean, again, that was a sort of a bitter taste, really, because obviously I played the semi-final and I've been injured, and I played probably the last 5 or 6 Premiership games, and again, I'll tell you a little story that doesn't really matter. Strachan knows anyway, but we got down to Cardiff on the I think it was on a Thursday, if I remember rightly. So we were training Friday morning, and normally Woggy, the kit man, would drop your kit on the Friday morning. Would have been dropped outside the door, and you pick it up, just after 8:30, whatever you time you knew you'd be there from about 8ish. Anyway, I got a knock on the door about 8:15, something like that, and I just looked through the door, key hole and such, and it was Strachan holding me kit, so I knew then that I wasn't going to be playing, that thing. So I've literally opened the door, and he's gone to say, I said, fuck off, basically, Strachan, I know what you're going to say. You ginger little tosser. So he took the kit off him, and that was it, because, you know as a player that thing. But, to be fair, Ante wasn't fit. That was the biggest thing for me. That was a disappointing thing for me. He wasn't 100%.
Yeah.
You could see him training. He was labouring a bit. So I was half expecting to come on anyway for myself, because he just didn't look fit. And even in the warm-up, and that was a big disappointment for me, because at the end of the day, as I say, it was at the Millennium Stadium. It was an FA Cup final. But to come on, it was at the time wasn't great. When I think back, it was great to be involved with the FA Cup final. As you say, the only keeper to come on and only keeper to keep a clean sheet and not win the FA Cup. So
yeah,
quiz question, as we know. But it was a sort of. But again, that sort of sowed the seed a little bit, and then I'd say the following season, what happened with the November, December time, I just felt that it was time to move on. As much as the team was looking, whether to little win in Europe and so on. I think sometime, because if I was 28 or whichever, I would have stuck at it and see where it went. Do you know what I mean? But I was thinking I was 37, 38 at the time, enough, and it comes to a point where you can't play week in, week out regularly in the Premier League as a first team keeper. So maybe it's a little bit either or, really. Whether Strachan saw that, but at the end of the day, for me, it was just sort of okay. He's made his decision, so I think it's time for me to move on.
Yeah, well, it's great for you to kind of talk that through, and that's one of the questions which a lot of fans were very, very interested in thinking, what you felt on that FA Cup final day. Thanks to Sahari, Ross, and Buenos Aires Saint who sent in questions about that. So I kind of wonder what's it like, at the kind of that tail end of your career. You moved on. Did you feel like it was the kind of, obviously we've already mentioned that it wasn't the way that you wanted to kind of end your career. Did you feel like you were still kind of a Premier League quality keeper and felt like, you could get going again, and obviously had a little brief spell at Liverpool and Watford and QPR?
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, I honestly, I also went to Liverpool, as you say, I played a couple of games, but there for the month, which was, to be fair, was awesome experience. As much as it was amazing, really. They've always talked about the sort of top 4 or 5 clubs being slightly different in the Premier League, and you think, how can it be different? But to be fair, it was. There was just something about the training, the quality of the training, the speed of the training. You got the likes of Gerrard, obviously Owen, Murphy. There's so many top players there. The training is it was unbelievable, to be honest. It was almost like I was in awe and watching it, and I was obviously watching from the point of view I was getting shot at, but it was just amazing to be involved with that. I'll never forget that period. That again, I wanted to be playing, because the other side of that, playing wise, obviously I was playing for Wales. We were in having a very good European Championship at that time, and we were at one stage we were looking like we were going to qualify straight off, but obviously we went to the playoffs. But so I needed to be playing for that as well. That was the other big thing in my mind as my last shot at a possible international tournament as well. So I just felt if I was not playing at Southampton, and almost like wherever I was playing, I just wanted to play, And obviously at the time I went to Wolves with Dave again. Dave Jones signed me for the third time, and went to Wolves. And to be fair, we nearly escaped because they were struggling when I went, and we nearly did the bottom at the time, but nearly escaped from keeping them up. But we didn't quite, and obviously that season after that, things started to change. Spookily, Glen Hoddle came in for Dave again, and managers, and that's when I went off to Watford and ended up, obviously went to QPR from there. So, and unfortunately we lost to Russia 1-0 in the playoffs. So it was, and it's weird because of the QPR situation. I really enjoyed QPR sort of half a season when I went the sort of back end, and then it all sort of changed again the last season, and almost got to a point where again I was 40 and I've started to coach the Welsh team, and so you almost got to a point where, well, I can't go on much longer. I'm in my 40s, all right, you might get another year or two, but it was the fact it's almost like I've done my bit now, and perhaps trying to give some, the experience of coaching. I started to coach a little bit at QPR, and then obviously the Wales coaching sort of, much as he's part-time, full-time in the part-time, if you see what I mean. The Wayne NC and the boys that are coming through at Wales. So it goes on, you do go on to another stage of your career, whether it be in football or not, at the end of the day.
Yeah, and our listener Benji kind of wrote in to ask about what it's like retiring as a professional football player and your involvement in coaching, and whether you'd like to become a full-time coach or a full-time manager or anything like that.
Yeah, no, no, definitely not. I think I'd love to give the managing side a go, to be honest, but I just know from speaking. I mean, I won't mention names because it's not filmed then. But I'm speaking to managers that are not in the game anymore, and they honestly they just say, "Do you know what? The players have so much power. You can't almost run the club because there's someone above you normally that's buying players.
Yeah.
So you're getting players that you don't even or not know about. Obviously, you know about them, but you're getting players in that some guy up above you's bought as such. That happens at clubs now. It's not. They're not managers anymore. They're just literally a coach of 20 players or whatever. There's no running of the mill as such. The Harry Redknapps of the years and those boys that have run clubs at the end of the day. I mentioned Harry, obviously it's Saints, but didn't go down too well. But what I mean, those sort of British managers that have run clubs over the years. The Bill Shankleys and Bob Paisley at Liverpool, and obviously Fergie at Man United. Those boys have run the club from top to bottom. They know that the window cleaner, what I mean? They know anything and everything about the club.
Yeah.
Where now, I wouldn't say they don't know those people, but there is a different level now where they just coach the players. And I think that's probably why the foreigners have done so well with managers when they've come in, because it is more of a foreign setup. That's what they do in Spain's and Italy's and so on. So I think that's why it's been difficult for British managers to sort of continue. You've got your likes of your Hodgsons and Allardyces and so on who've been around for donkey's years, but it must be very difficult for guys that are trying to get through and to actually to work that way. And as I say, I know one or two boys that I know very well that they're so disillusioned with management that they won't even bother looking for a job anymore. So it's quite sad that way, really.
Yeah, I have spoken to a couple of ex-players who've said that it's just very difficult to break into a management sort of career, and the manager will tend to have his own little coaching team that he takes from job to job to job. So unless you manage to pick up one like that, then you kind of end up being left outside.
I think, to be fair, my point of view, coaching, goalkeeping, coaching, obviously, which I would do. I mean, I loved after I finished playing, I went to the Welsh setup for 5 years, I think it was, which is brilliant because it was part time. So you're in sort of together 3 or 4 months of the year as such in total. But also, I had a few offers to go full-time coach to different clubs, and to be fair, it's 24/7 for the boys, as well. That's the other side of it. The coaching the first team, the coaching the reserves, the coaching or going to find the next keeper that's supposed to come through. And after being in the game from, I joined it professionally late, but I was playing from 16, and it was just nice to take a back seat as such. And I sort of got to a point where, to be fair, my right knee's not brilliant. So to train every day, I probably couldn't do that, or coach every day, I probably couldn't do that anymore. So
yeah,
different people have different situations where, as much as I'd like to give the experience to guys, the fact that I couldn't physically do it properly for them would be a big no-no for myself as well, really.
Okay. I'm going to get into more of our listener questions. I think we've got about another 10 minutes left, so we'll go through these quite quickly. Yeah. The most popular topic we had with our listeners coming in was Fraser Forster, with Pilchers, Mr. Gold, Bazza, Owen, all asking questions about Fraser Forster. I'll read the range of questions, but generally it's all about his form and what's happening with him. Could you ask him if he has any advice for Fraser Forster on crosses and stopping goals flying in from outside the area? Fraser Forster, is it a lack of confidence thing, or is Forster being coached incredibly badly to go from the fringes of being England #1 to looking like a liability and a shadow of his former self? And just from a goalkeeper's perspective, what's gone wrong with Fraser?
Yeah, I mean, I've only seen Fraser once live, which actually the season's Brighton against Saints at Amex. So, which actually, talking about crosses, yes, he come for some nice crosses that day, but the goal was a little bit, he almost got a little bit flat-footed. And I think sometimes, again, from the TV bits I've seen, and I do read things that the Saints people put on and so on about Fraser and that, I think sometimes his footwork, A, doesn't get him quite in the right starting position, and B, doesn't move his feet quick enough at times.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a big lad, he's 6'8", is he? 7'8"?
Yeah.
So he's, I don't assume. I mean, is it Dave? His coach at Saints and I think. I don't know if Dave's still there, but
maybe
I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm surprised they. I'm sure they work on your cone work, your footwork and so on. But coming back to someone obviously just mentioned that maybe lack of confidence. I mean, he was playing so well until he got injured, obviously 18 months or so ago. So he's come back in, and whether it is a little bit lacking confidence, just getting back into the games and so on. It may be a little bit of everything. I think in the way that again, I think the team's chopped and changed a little bit in front of him. So that's always a big thing. I was very lucky having pretty much the same back four for a long time at Saints, which is brilliant because you get such a, again, going back to the 7 clean sheet, you have that rapport of the players of knowing what everybody does, and when people are chopping and changing in front of you, sometimes that can put little doubts in your mind as well. So as well, there's a bit of that, and I have seen some of the longer ones go in, longer shots from outside the box and so on, which again, it just looks like he falls back a little bit. So the big lad, he needs to be trying to attack the ball. He's a little bit using the feet, which I've noticed over the last few years has crept into a lot of goalkeepers using the feet. But at the end of the day, you use your hands to catch the ball. And I don't want to understand whether they're being coached this way or why they do that. And for me, I used to call it being on the front foot. Whether you're an outfield player or a goalkeeper, it's the same thing. You're trying to attack things, whether it be crosses, even shots, and you see quite a few, especially the Brighton one, because I saw that live, and I actually turned to the guy I was sat with watching it and started chatting to him and didn't realise it'd gone in because I thought he'd just catch it, in the corner, but he almost fell back in the goal, and it was like a bit bizarre, and I just think, he should be attacking that. That's one I've seen live, and at the time, that's what I thought. So, but I think, overall, it's probably a little bit lack of confidence of what's in front of him, maybe, and obviously things happen. And it normally falls on the goalkeeper if you're losing games that, chopping and changing. Obviously, he's been left out recently, which is McCarthy, isn't it?
Yeah, McCarthy coming in.
Which might just give him a breather in the way that, okay, he's not playing and, get some good training sessions under his belt, and then obviously, hope to come in and come fresher maybe. It happened to me once actually. I think it was 1999, around that period where I had a back operation around the 2000 it was, and then I came back in. I probably came back too quick to be fair, and didn't start brilliantly. Hoddle left me out. I had a couple of 3 weeks of real training, and A, annoying because I wasn't playing, but B, and then also you come back and you're fresh and you're right at it again. As much as you don't want to admit to that at the time, you don't feel that. Maybe that's just something that's happened with him. He's pulled him out of it. If and when he gets back in, hopefully he'll come back and really give it a go again.
Yeah, I think the points that you've picked up on there is almost like you have been watching Saints all season, because it is that kind of flat-footedness and that confidence. And yeah. I ended up getting tickets like right behind the goal recently for a match which Fraser was playing in, and I was actually quite surprised at how quiet he was with the defence in front of him. For such a big, imposing man, you'd really expect him to be commanding the central defence. And
exactly. I mean, that's it. And again, maybe there's a future option change, and whether he's. But at the end of the day, he's training with them, so he should know the guys in front of him, what their strengths and so on. But yeah, I mean, I don't know him personally. I've not met him personally, so I don't know. At the end of the day, you can be 6'8" or whatever, but if you're quiet and you don't have that sort of personality to get out there, that might make a difference to the defenders as well. But that's what, for me, if I was coaching personally, I'll be saying to him, he should be coming for everything all day long. You can't catch everything or come for everything. I appreciate that, but he should be dominating that, certainly 6 to 8 yards or so, where they don't get sniff any players, exactly. Putting the ball in the box like that. But again, whether that's a little bit of confidence at the moment, that might be it. But also, I don't think. Again, I think that's come on in football after the last few years, that defenders seem to defend so deep now, and it's almost like there's no room for a goalkeeper to come from crosses. It's very bizarre. Some of the goals that go in, keepers get hammered for, but they can't. When they've got players coming across them, you can't dive for the one that goes in the corner until you know it's going in the corner. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
It just seems with the defence, we always used to work a massive thing of all the 18-yard line as long as possible, to give me space to work in myself. But obviously, if they're hitting shots from obviously further than that, or heading further than 12, 18 yards, you've got half a chance to save things. If they're heading things from 6 yards, you've virtually got no chance. So it is an obvious thing to do. But defenders now seem to be so deep. Some of the goals that go in, and you just think, well, what could the keeper do more, because he's got no room to work at it. So I think there's a combination, a bit of everything there. I wouldn't say, obviously he's got the abilities, we know that from the last year, couple of years, but something's just lacking a little bit, whether, as I say, the confidence and his teammates perhaps as well.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll go on to some questions from It's a Corner. The first one he wants to know, and I think this is following up from being a Saints fan and having had Bruce Grobbler as our goalkeeper before. Were you ever approached for a bung or to throw a match, or ever approached by the shadier side of things?
No, not personally. There's one. This is at non-league actually, Kidderminster, where our striker got, would you believe, offered something not to score several goals or something, because he was on fire at the time. I heard about that literally a couple of weeks later, but that was something many years ago. But not personally, no, never nothing anything like that.
Yeah,
you might think otherwise if I've had a few goals in, but no, honestly not.
Yeah. And another question he asks is, did you ever want to kind of swear or kick a bottle of water into the supporters behind the goal, who are kind of giving the we'll do an inverted commas of banter, and which away supporters were the worst to have, behind the goal for you?
No, I don't think I did anything like that. I mean, to be fair, I always went the other way. I tried to have a laugh with the supporters at the end of the day, because I just thought, well, it's no good me if I'm getting upset with them, and I just think it takes everything away what you're trying to do. And as much as obviously I'm concentrating the game, there was times when the ball went behind, you'd have a laugh. But I remember, I think one of the first we played at Ellen Road against Leeds, and the first time I went there with Saints, and I run down towards their end, I can't remember the main cop end as such. And they started applauding me. I thought, oh, that's nice. So I applauded back. They all sort of booed and whistled at me. Like, oh, you wanking, all that.
Yeah.
You know, I thought, oh, hang on a minute. This is like... So, of course, the next season I went down, run out that way, and they started doing it again. And I went to clap, but I didn't. And they started laughing, do you know what I mean? So all of a sudden, if you swing around the other way, you know, it's almost like, I got you there, you know, because they're sort of... I know it says daft, but you sort of have have a rapport that way than deaf and blind. I mean, people used to say things disgusting. You can't say things on that, on anything what they used to say. But I just used to laugh. You know what I mean? It's just that was just the way it was. You know, and it's probably I'm sure it is still now. But no, for me, it was just a matter of just try and smile and have a laugh with it and take the other way.
Yeah, and old Nick has picked out one of his favourite memories that you're involved in. He says, "What are your memories of Delhurst Park, as we called it? You know, when Saints took filled nearly half of Selhurst Park with supporters in that relegation survival season."
That was Wimbledon, wasn't it? Yeah, against Wimbledon, wasn't it? Actually, I think I'd only come back. Actually, it might have been my first game back after I had a twinge in my back originally. And I missed a couple of games and Neil had played, Mossy had played a couple. And I was come back in for that game. And, I mean, it was brilliant. I have to say that the full side of Selhurst Park was full of Saints. And for the players, when we run out, obviously you don't, as much as you've heard, that, you know, there's going to be a fair amount of Saints supporters. But when you come out and then virtually half the ground's full of your supporters, it was like, wow, you know what I mean? It was just amazing that the boys are insane in the change room. You know, we can't let these fans down. They've come all this way, obviously paid the money. I say all this way, but, you know, to support us like that, you know, you can see how much it means to them. And as much as we wanted to stay in the Premier League as players, you know what I mean? You see what it meant to the supporters. So it was just awesome. I think I played quite well as well. We won 2-0, didn't we? So, and obviously that beat Everton at home, but it sort of turned out that we won that 2-0, and then I think Charlton lost anyway, didn't they? So we got 5 points. Finished 5 points above, but you know that was amazing. Obviously, that atmosphere was incredible. You know, to virtually, and I know we had one more game to go, but beating Wimbledon, we sort of knew that we're pretty much safe as such. You know, not mathematically, but you know, we still have to do a job against Everton. But it was tremendous day that.
And another one here from one of our listeners, Alex McInnes, wants to know who is your favourite centre back to play behind.
Yeah, I think I mentioned Klaus. Obviously, London Van Klaus was pretty much with me all my career, and I think it's pretty much Klaus was one, if not of the two, all the time. Really, you had Cameron Cow originally, and then obviously Dean Richards, who was a tremendous player. You know, unfortunately, obviously he passed away a few years ago now, but he should have been playing for England really at the end of the day. But unfortunately, I played him at Tottenham and so on. But he was brilliant. But I think overall Klaus was just. I mean, the only thing about Klaus, I mean, he could be magnificent or he could have a funny 5 minutes. But I think the fans will realise that, and you know, 9 times out of 10 he was brilliant. Do you know what I mean? He was great. He was just pretty quick, very quick for a centre half at that time. And just a lovely lad as well, you know. He was just tremendous, you know. And obviously, over the years he'd been at Saints, he's been a brilliant player for me. Yeah,
thinking about that, actually, you've had some really great players in that. You know, Ken Moncal, Klaus, Michael Svensson.
Yeah, well, Mike. Yeah, of course, Michael. So I never really played a lot with Michael because at the time Antti was playing, and then Michael got injured when I got back in, and then I left. So I never, as much as obviously I saw the training, but unfortunately Michael had a quite bad knee injury, didn't he? If I remember rightly. But yeah, I mean, and not many. You know, if you think over, you know, the 6-7 seasons I was there, as I say, there was Ken, Klaus, Dean, and then Michael came in. So you know, there wasn't that many. You know, some clubs end up having 5 or 6, 7 different centre halves. I mean, Klaus was pretty much one of them, and then one of the others slotted in at the time. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I was very, very lucky, and really Dodgy was pretty much my right back, and between Bridgie and Franny was left back. So, if you think over the time, we had a pretty much stable sort of back five, including myself.
Yeah.
Around that time. So, which I think certainly helps. Now clubs swap and change, and it must be difficult. Going back on Fraser again. Each week you're playing with a different centre half or different defence at time. It can be very difficult.
Yeah, I look at the current predicament with Southampton's defending this season, and it looks like the squad rotation and injuries and players wanting transfers, that we haven't really had a settled back four or partnership. And you look at thinking of that game that you were at, the game against Brighton, and you had we were left with Cedric Soares, our short little Portuguese right back, marking Glenn Murray, and it just think who's organising that defence? That's got to be a case of things have gone wrong with the organisation, with the that you end up in that sort of situation.
That's right.
I wonder, Paul, who's your goalkeeping hero, if you have one?
Yes, I did. Again, going back to Liverpool fan as a boy, it was Ray Clements. Ray was just not as I used to watch him much, because we didn't have a TV as a kid, which sounds a bit daft now, doesn't it? But originally, so I used to listen on the radio a lot. So obviously the mid-70s, late 70s, when we were winning European Cups and so on. But Ray was my sort of my big one at that time, and then a little bit later on, obviously Neville Southall with being Welsh, and obviously being a top keeper as well. Nev sort of come when sort of Ray finished, because and unfortunately I took over from Neville Southall for the Welsh goalkeeping spot. So that was pretty awesome. And I know Ray Clements very well now. Over the years we've been to different things and golf things and so on, and he's a lovely guy. So I'm very fortunate to sort of meet you here, and he's such a nice guy as well, because sometimes you meet your heroes and you're not sure. I think maybe not, he's not, but they're the sort of main two, certainly, for me.
Yeah. And are there any goalkeepers playing now that you look at and you think, wow, they're a really fantastic keeper? I'd love to have, played with them or seen them in action.
Yeah, it's difficult. As I said, I must admit, I don't watch a lot of football now. It actually bores me. I know it sounds daft, but I mentioned it earlier. The last couple of years, I just find this, keep the ball going backwards, sideways, back to the keeper, sideways, back foot. It does my head in. So I must admit, I don't watch a great deal now, and when I do watch it, I get frustrated because they use the feet and so on. But I think the boy at United is probably is probably the best, I think, in the Premier League. Certainly. I think he's when he first came in, he did look like a boy. He looked very tiny and got battered a bit. But to be fair to him, he came back fantastic, and is probably has been and is probably the best keeper in the Premier League for the last year or so. I think, like a year or two.
And he has an interesting method as well, doesn't he? Because he uses his feet a lot more than most goalkeepers I've noticed.
Yeah,
for saves, which is quite odd.
Yeah, he does. I don't quite get it. I don't quite get what, as I said, the feet thing. I can understand if they're coming through and something's hit, from 6 yards or whatever. You don't have time to react to get your hands down low, but I do find that there's a lot more, almost diving with the feet. It's weird, and I have the bit of coaching I do now, just some of my local kids, I shout at them when they use the feet. I really do. Don't use it, because they see it on the TV and it's like, what are you doing that? But well, as you say, Dell or Fraser did that last week. Or, no, use your hands first. Obviously, your body is there to be used, but try and use your hands first. They just try and kick it away or whatever. It's like, no, stop. But yeah, I think Dell. I think he's been the most consistent over the last couple of years as well. He's definitely come on and just don't make goalkeeping. Obviously, phrase about the England thing. I think England are struggling. I think Butland's not been brilliant. The boy Pickford's done okay at Everton. Obviously, Fraser's been left out, and Joe Hart's playing big games. So as much as I'm Welsh and whatever, I feel a little bit for England for the goalkeeping spot for the World Cup, because there's no one really sort of saying this is my spot. Do you know what I mean? So someone needs to grab it because it'll come around very quickly.
So another question from Bog Roast, who asks, are you still in touch with Neil Moss?
No, but I see Neil now and again at different bits.
Yeah.
And Bob's again. I must admit. I think is he coaching Bournemouth? If I remember right, last time it was a little while ago I spoke to him. But no, I must admit the only boys I sort of see now and again is Matt and Franny and Dodsey, different other charity events or golf events and so on.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, as much as you've been mates when you're at the time at clubs, you end up being whatever spot you're in at you finish your career, and lads go and do the same thing. They go off elsewhere, but when you see each other, it's great. Do you know what I mean? You talk about old times, and there's nothing better. So, but to have a regular contact with a lot of the players, you ask any of the players, it's very rarely they do. Really, not the fact that they don't want to. It's just different times of whatever parts of the career they're at the time. Yeah.
No, I get that as well. As you get older, you see your friends less for whatever reason. Yeah. So this is kind of my silly question alert, and this comes from a man called Saint Bannerman, and he says, would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 20 duck-sized horses?
Wow, that is the one. One horse-sized duck. At the end of the day, there's only one. Don't run around after 20. Once you got one down, you're done, aren't you? So yeah, definitely one.
One horse-sized duck.
One, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Definitely.
He asked Michael Svensson whether he'd rather have spoons for legs or forks for arms. So he's got previous on his silly questions.
Wow. Good on him.
Yeah. He does also add, big love to Jonah, one of my all-time favourites, and I've got to mention quite a few Saints fans did, speaking very highly of you, when we asked them to send in their questions. So you're still a fan's favourite, and not surprising considering first choice keeper for 5 seasons and won a player of the season as well. So
No, brilliant. I really, honestly, my time at Saints was brilliant. It really was. As I say, we had such a good dressing room as well, especially the first 3 or 4 years. It was amazing, and then obviously you always have different times of fans or whatever. But on the majority of it, were brilliant to me. So I will send the love back, definitely.
Brilliant. And any last words about the Saints or to our listeners before we sign off?
Hopefully, hopefully stay up. I mean, that's the biggest part. I mean, it's the FA Cup draw tonight, so see they're getting that, which obviously beating Fulham as much as it is only Fulham as such, is a confidence hopefully booster, and the boys will start getting some points on the ball because it's looking pretty it's very tight down there now, isn't it? There's a number of teams involved, so and obviously the next 4 or 5 games, there's certainly opportunity to get enough points to get away. So fingers crossed, that will happen, and very good luck to hopefully the supporters will be happy at the end of the season.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I'd certainly like to see us get a few more wins this season. Would be brilliant. All right, well, thank you very much, Paul. I'm going to say
lovely. Cheers, John.
Bye-bye to our listeners, Paul. You're welcome to do the same.
Yep. Yes, bye all. Enjoy. As I say, Happy New Year to you all, and hopefully it'll be a happy May when Saints stay up.
Brilliant. Cheers, Paul.
Lovely. Cheers, John. Thanks, mate.
Right, we're reaching 7,000 followers on Twitter and 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. And to celebrate, you can win yourself one of these excellent football bubble hats, courtesy of Football Bubbles. Now, all you need to do, go over to our Twitter page, the pinned tweet at the very top of the page. And all you need to do is subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, like our Facebook, our Twitter page, and leave a reply to the tweet. Good luck.